Hello and welcome to another Edinburgh Northern Cockerel cast. For episode 24, we've invited on a former Twos captain or Twos co-captain, depending on who you ask. He is a hard-hitting centre, but often popped up in the back row when he felt not enough ball was getting past 10. Once a successful contestant on ITV's The Chase, he's a current officer of the law, but we understand he's craving a return to student life. Like many of us, he has uprooted himself to go outside of the city, punishing himself with two kids under two at one point. Get them out of the way, quick, I say. He is, of course, our very popular Mr. Sacha Ponniah. Good evening, Sacha. How are you?
Good, mate. Good. How are you?
Very well, Pat.
Welcome on to the Cockerel cast, Sacha. What have you got to drink for us this evening?
I'm drinking a wee Malbec. It was a birthday gift. It was my birthday last week, and it was a birthday gift from some friends' parents, and it's a bit too delicious, so I may end up going through the whole thing tonight, but that's no harm in it, I suppose.
Nothing wrong with that at all, and it's a nice bottle of red. Yourself, Jason?
I've got a Williams Brothers I hadn't come across before, the Honey Thief. Excuse me, very tasty.
Very good. And I have a low alcohol Czech lager from M&S, which is by far the most inferior of the three. So far the tasting notes are definitely like Pilsner, but there's no character to it at all. But I felt I deserved a non-alcoholic beer after running around for an hour. So
Plenty of character in our guest, though. So, first of all, tell us how lockdown is treating you. Then, what you've been up to, and how are you getting on?
A wee bit mixed. Good and bad. I mean, good that I've been getting to spend loads of time with the kids. As you mentioned, I've got Evie, who's 2.5, going on 25, and Teddy, who is a year and a half. So, yeah, it's been great spending time with them, but it's also been very hard work. So for the first 6 weeks, I was on parental leave, and then 2 weeks of annual leave, which was always planned. It just happened to coincide with the start of lockdown. Good in that we didn't have childcare issues, but while I was looking forward to spending time with them, I wasn't expecting to do so without any classes, nursery, or places to go. So you can only do so many walks in the woods and on the beach before they get fed up. So I created a bit of alone time for myself by building a clubhouse set up for them, which, is probably up there in my top achievements, which doesn't say a lot, but so that's good. A pretty substantial clubhouse in the garden and doing some garden work. I've become quite a keen gardener. During lockdown, the solitude is welcome. So, and then I took a month of unpaid leave at the end, so just back to work about 8 weeks ago. That's me.
So, do you want to tell us a bit about your backstory? Where you're from. I know Jason has touched a bit on your career and career potential as well. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah. So from Edinburgh, from South Edinburgh, surprisingly, playing for Edinburgh Northern, but I was always a South Edinburgh guy. I grew up in Newington, went to a couple of schools, went to Heriot's to start off with. That's where I started playing rugby and fell in love with rugby. Depending on who you ask, I left Heriot's at the end of early second year of Heriot's after being there for nursery, primary school. Asked to leave / expelled, but turned over a new leaf when I went to my new school, Gillespie's, which in fairness is a pretty non-rough state school in South Edinburgh. Uni, I went to uni for a long time, although I'm returning to being a student now. I was at uni for 7 years, and unlike many of our players, I'm not a doctor. I started 4 different subjects, ended up finishing in sports science. Like many sports science graduates, went on to be a police officer. So I've been in the police for 9.5 years, just under 9.5 years, and I recently resigned after lockdown. Number of reasons, but going back to uni. I started an open uni degree last year in computing, and I'm going to finish that by studying full time for the next 2 years, and hopefully have another career in IT, unless the wife gets a promotion, and I may be able to just retire fully. Count this as a real retirement.
And then you really can build your own clubhouse in the back garden, I feel.
Well, exactly. I like to claim I'm retiring. She likes to say I've resigned. I mean, potato, really.
So you obviously touched on your first rugby experience in Sacha. So tell us then really where you first picked up a ball and any previous clubs and whatnot.
So I as I said, I went to Harriet's, and it's been a private school in Edinburgh. Rugby was a big thing. Straight away, I loved rugby from when we first started playing it. I can't really remember starting to play it, but I understand it was around about primary 3. And my dad was very much a sort of school and uni athlete. My dad's Sri Lankan and played cricket, basketball, and rugby for his school and uni. So it was sport was very much a thing in our house. Very, very much a sport focused house. My dad's a golfer as well, but I think a lot of it was trying to sort of reach his level, which I never actually managed, but doing it away from cricket, because I think I knew always that I would never be able to surpass. He was a very good cricketer, so I didn't think I could probably catch him there. So focused on rugby, played a lot. I was generally quite a small, skinny child, so ended up on the wing. Played all the way through school on the wing, occasionally in the centre with Ben Guerin, who again is one of our northern players. But albeit he was always better than me, and he still is. So, so played on the wing pretty much all the way through school. When I changed schools, I played at Barmuir for a little while in mini rugby again with Ben and a few others, but we had some really good players in that team. So Richard Snedden, who I believe went to school with Chris Aitken and Hardman at Watson's. His dad was our coach. He was a scrum half, but an unbelievable player. And a guy, Eddie Dalgleish, who was a man mountain at the time, but he was pretty much then at the age of 10, 11, the same size as he is now. So he just barreled through everyone. So we won a lot, but I can't say I had much to do with that. I was kind of stuck out on the wing, not doing a lot, chasing a lot of kicks, which was kind of customary and became a bit of a habit throughout my career. But a bit of time at Barmuir, then moved to Murrayfield Wanderers. So for a while, I got really into my rugby, and I was playing on a Saturday for the school and on a Sunday for Murrayfield Wanderers, and it was just around that time that I switched schools. So kept playing for Wanderers. It was a bit of a trek getting the bus on a Tuesday and Thursday all the way from Marchmont right across town. We'd get dinner at a mate's house and home, but enjoyed it. Played up until about 16, when other distractions sort of came into play, and I started wanting to go out boozing and girls and stuff, and it kind of was taking me away from wanting to be at training and playing on a Sunday morning. So kind of drifted away from it. Had a minor knee injury, and then didn't play for a good few years until I went back to uni. At uni, I played for the Purple Cobras, which I believe Jurassic also played for, although we must have not crossed over. But basically, similar to Northern, I think I was starting to find my interest. They had the best stash by far and the best drinking game. So I think found my feet there, and was enjoying it so much. I joined Edinburgh Northern's great rival at the time, Murray House.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have been about 2007, 2008, about then.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Because they disbanded, I think, just before I joined Northern Money House. I think 2010,
Yes.
2011.
And I think they were a bit on the decline. It was an older team. I enjoyed it, but training wasn't really up to scratch. That was a time, at that time, I was actually someone who enjoyed training, which changed in my later years. But so, yeah, joined Murray House, played there for a few years, but I knew Hardman and Spills and stuff from school. Just had a lot of mutual friends. We lived in, especially myself and Hardman, we lived quite close to each other. So I knew that they were at Northern. I was hearing all about their nights out and the banter and meeting a few of their mates, and it wasn't the same at Murray House. And I just was like, oh, I really want to move to Northern, but I couldn't because they were the big rivals, and it would have really been a desertion of a sinking ship to to the rivals who. And I actually remember a game where I think it was either the game where Northern won promotion or won the league against Murray House, and I was playing in that game for Murray House, and that was and I had mates who were then celebrating after, and I thought, I don't know how much longer I can do this for a team. I'm not even enjoying the banter side of it. The team is not great, and I'm watching people who I'm mates with celebrating a win. So it was pretty tempting. Moved down to London for a couple of years, working in a gym down there. So when I came back, Murray House were still contacting me, actually, expecting me to try and play for them. But I mean, I didn't really want to go from South Edinburgh to play for them, let alone coming from London. So as soon as I moved back up, and I had started in the police, as soon as I passed my fitness test and knew I wasn't going to get injured, joined Northern. So that was 2010, 2011 season. So,
Fantastic.
and that kind of brings me
on to Northern. That's quite the impressive pedigree, actually. You know, kind of. I actually started playing rugby about the same age. I think it must have been primary freeze when you're 5, isn't it? Or no, 6 or 7. About that. I don't have kids. Feel free to confirm that to me. I remember mini rugby at that age. You know, hiding at the back. And the coach, who was one of my very good friends' dad, he was always like, "Oh, you want to play fullback?" Then I was like, "No, I just don't want to get tackled, and I don't have to make any tackles." So it's quite contrasting, eh? But no, it's an impressive back catalogue of rugby, actually. I didn't realise you played for Murrayfield Wanderers as well. Yeah, that's quite cool.
I did, yeah. I played for Colts, which was, what is Colts even now? Is that
under 16s?
Under 16, so under 15, under 16, under 17, and under 18. Yeah, I played until I was under 18s, and that was pretty good. I mean, some of the guys that I played with who weren't really getting in the team, the Fogo twins, were really not in the team, but they continued playing. And then the next time I saw them, they were absolute hulks, and they had got so much better. And they were playing for basically Murrayfield Wanderers first at that time when they were up, around about Prem. Mm-hmm. So. But I mean, yeah, I think to be perfectly honest, my younger rugby career, I was skinny, but I was pretty quick, and so I just liked to run with the ball. I wasn't really fussed about tackling, but as one of my mates' dads used to say, he used to pray that I would just get out the way and just let some of the guys go through, because there were always the behemoths when we were playing mini rugby and junior rugby and things, and I was never one of them. You know, I was wiry, but I would always sort of throw myself at them with mixed results. There wasn't a lot of technique going on then, but one of my kind of big regrets was that I stopped playing around that sort of 17-year-old mark when I had that injury, because I then convinced myself that when I came back and I saw some of the size of some of the wingers and stuff, I convinced myself that the only way I was going to be able to compete was to go to the gym. So I went to the gym loads, but there was so much technically that I missed out on. So like kicking game, as you guys will know, kicking is not one of my strengths, which as a winger, it's a pretty useful skill to have. And especially if you move further infield, it could be pretty useful. So kicking, positional play. So that was something I kind of really had to develop when I came back to uni. And positional play, I think I worked on and got a sense of, but I think after that it was always kind of catch up. So I'd say I was always kind of a bit adaptable, but I would never have said I was the best in any real position. You know, it was fairly quick, but with no size. And then when I put on a bit of size, I probably lost a bit of pace.
It is interesting you talk about not wanting to tackle, because we will, I'm sure, come on to, there was a bit of a sea change with your time at Northern, which is probably the opposite to your mini career, but we will come on to your time at Northern now. You mentioned that you knew Spills and Hardman, and that's how you kind of learned about the best club ever, but what are your kind of early memories of joining, you know, your first training session, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I actually remember we were training down, it was winter, so it was you know, in the dark, one of the sessions, but we were using Edinburgh Accies training pitch. And I came down, I'd said to Hardman and Aitken, I actually became pretty good mates with Aitken at uni, because he was very good friends with flatmates of my girlfriend at the time. So I was hanging out with him a lot, boozing a lot with him, singing a lot of Afternoon Delight. And I split up with that girlfriend, but I kept her friends, so that was a good trade-off. And so came to Northern, came down with the lads, and Paul Larter was the coach at the time, and seemed pretty switched on. And I suppose for me, because I hadn't really had a coach at Intramural and at Murray House, so I kind of, the last coaching I'd remembered had really been at Murrayfield Wanderers, so it didn't seem like maybe as good I didn't maybe appreciate how good a setup it was coaching wise at the time, but Larter was pretty switched on in hindsight. You know, had some good drills and stuff, and I came down just not really sure about where I would play then. I didn't know, I hadn't probably sprinted in about 5 years or 6 years, because I had no reason to, apart from maybe for a bus. And so came down to Northern, knew a few of the guys, so felt fairly comfortable, and had a run about, and just really enjoyed it. It was a good bunch of lads, a big bunch of lads as well at training, and it felt fine. You know, I felt like I felt a bit, technically I had a bit of work to do, but I felt very welcomed sort of straight away. I kind of positioned myself out wide when we were playing touch and stuff. I still had a bit of pace, so then, you know, felt okay, kind of fitted in, but it was a pretty good team all round at that time, so I wasn't expecting to sort of walk in and start, and I didn't really know what would happen, so I found myself benching quite a lot that first season, and getting some time on the wing, and that was good. But obviously in the winter months it can be a bit tricky for wingers sometimes. You know, the ball doesn't get very far, and if you've been out for a few seasons, you kind of think, well, I really want to get the ball, I don't want to just be defending. But at the same time, I kind of started to adjust to it. Then I made the critical mistake of asking Larter to put me in the seconds instead of benching, because I thought, well, I'm giving up this time. I'd rather be playing full games in the twos than benching in the ones. So I did play a lot in the twos then after that, and then I actually had to go back to him with my tail between my legs a bit and be like, I'd actually quite like a bit of time in the ones. If I've got a bench, then that's fair enough. And so benched for a bit, got a few opportunities, and then started playing a bit more in the ones, mainly on the wing. But then occasionally, if the regular sort of centre pairings were injured or unavailable, then I would get a bit of time in the centre. So sort of moving in 13 generally, and then at other times, depending on, you know, future seasons, kind of as things developed, kind of moved into a pretty straightforward 12, maybe an old school 12, rather than a ball playing 12. But I mean, I think I knew, and other people knew what my qualities are or were, and so, you know, I wasn't gonna set the world on fire, but I also wasn't gonna be necessarily a weak link. So I would say, sadly, as much as I would love to say I'm a Brian O'Driscoll in the centres, I'm actually probably a Brad Barrett. So Uh, so, so I've made peace with that. I'm okay with that.
I was going to give you the compliment and say more Mano now, but that's you've gone for the very straightforward.
I think he's got a sidestep.
I've seen you sidestep at some point. I must have seen you sidestep.
Maybe once. One of my most memorable tries was a sidestep, and that's why it's so memorable for me.
Excellent.
We'll get back to the pitch in a minute, but Sacha, we'll take this opportunity to let you tell us then what you see as Northern's unique selling point.
I think that it's such an inviting club. I knew straight away. I would say I came down to that first training session and I was either on the bench or in the twos. I can't really remember what I was that first weekend. I think I might have been on the bench. There's sometimes when you come down to a new club, it's kind of an unexpected. So if you play all right in training, people think, "Oh, let's test this guy out." So I got a chance on the bench, and that first week turned up, and everyone, as much as they were really nice and welcoming, was really up for the game. I mean, guys were switched on, and I knew straight away there were some good players there, as good as anyone I'd played with in the past. Probably better. There were some really talented players, but that weren't dicks with it. Do you know what I mean? They were good guys, good chat, but they wanted to win, and that kind of that fitted in with what I wanted as well. And then in the bar after, it was great. It was just a good bunch of lads, similar interests, similar chat, loads of bants, loads of nonsense, and I knew. I think I probably said, I don't know if I was. Yeah, I think I was with my now wife, but my girlfriend at the time, Fiona. I think I said to her, obviously after a few babies, but I was like, I'll definitely never play for another club again. And I played for a few up till then, and I was like, nah, that's it for me. I know this is a club for me, and actually my opinion's never changed. As much as I've moved all the way to Dunbar, a lot of people have asked me, "Oh, did you think about moving to Dunbar rugby club because it's a decent club and stuff?" But it never even crossed my mind. It would never have. One, I'm too old to be going and try and prove myself at a new club, but also I would just always be comparing it. And the thing I really like, and the reason I think we get a lot of players from some other clubs, because we have a lot of clubs around us, is that it very much is a feeling of one club. So you've got your gents, a lot of the gents still come down to the bar. You've got your first, you've got your second, you've got your other guys who are social members or injured or ex-players. But you wouldn't know when you're in the bar. You really wouldn't know who was. It's not cliquey. You don't have, a group over there that are the first team players and they don't speak to them, or these guys are thirds or seconds or ex-players, so no one really cares about them. I mean, you literally wouldn't know who anyone is. And that's not to say, like, we have wankers, but there are wankers, and actually I'd much rather spend time with them than a random wanker in a pub. So yeah, for me, yeah, it's been a great fit, a great time in my life, and my ideal night out is a day down the bunker and either going on somewhere, or if we just don't leave the bunker, either way, I'm happy. It's about one of the only reasons I'll actually venture into town these days. So that's it. That's a unique point for me. I'd imagine maybe other people think that about their rugby clubs, but I couldn't say. But certainly for me, Northern is the only club I'll ever be a member of.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that sentiment as well. And it's interesting you say most people probably think that other players at other rugby clubs probably feel the same about it, but then we play against them, and I'm not quite sure because nothing really seems quite out of the bunker, It doesn't seem. Sorry.
I think that's part of the bunker's charm as well. That, like, it looks like a bunker, but it doesn't feel it when you're inside. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's part of it. It's like a little hidden secret. But yeah, I mean, and it's funny because sometimes on nights out you bump into guys that you've played with, and I can see in them that sense that I had when I was at Murray House and I wanted to come to Northern, and they're like, I really want to move, but I mean, some of them do. But I've recruited a few fair, maybe because I speak so fondly of it and I love it so much. I've recruited a fair few players to the club. Pretty much all of them better than me, which I mean, I think that should really just lift up my attributes a wee bit if I had a player card, because you know, Kenny Robertson for one, Bob McIntosh is another, a couple of coppers, Paul Henderson, Ewan, big tall Ewan that's been sort of in and out. Hopefully he'll be back. So I mean, I brought a few, I scouted a few and brought them down. So.
If we did do Pokemon cards, we'll give you like a 10 for recruitment. I feel
good.
that's the reason I don't recruit players, because they probably will be better than me. So I'm all for advancing my own successes, not those of anyone else.
You'll note that none of those were centres or wingers. So.
Yeah, I could just start recruiting. Well, I don't actually know where I'm going to play next year after the weight I put on. I can't recruit anywhere just in case. We'll move on back.
The rest of us know where you're going to play.
Yeah, probably the bench for the twos, hopefully. Yeah. Oh no, I'm not. I've lost this. I'll be fine. Yeah, I also don't think John would let me play prop. Or I don't even think Burns would let me sit on the bench for the twos at the moment. So we'll have to see where I get on for that. We'll move back onto the pitch. Actually, it's interesting you mentioned Bob and Paul there, actually, because both very good players. I have really fond memories of at the start of my career playing with Northern. Do you have any kind of favourite? We'll start off with, do you have any particular favourite games that stand out for you?
I mean, the one memory that always pops in my mind when I think about game, like probably the most elated I've ever been, was there was a game where we were playing away to Leith, and I can't remember. Again, as I kind of mentioned to you guys before, I've got a terrible memory for exact sporting events. So really memorable games like that I've been to, Scotland games and stuff, I get mixed up between which years and things. So I remember snippets, like visual snippets. So there was a game at Leith where I believe it was the second to last game or something of the season, and we needed to win this game to basically secure promotion, but we would have had another chance at it the next week, I think. I'm pretty sure you were playing in it, Jace. It was a bit closer than we expected it to be. I think we expected at that time to kind of run over them because we'd had a good season. And I hadn't played that much. I'd been on the bench a bit, but I was starting on the wing in this game. And Big Gren Cranston is really good fun for a blindside winger, or for any winger, but especially for a blindside winger to play with, because with his big gangly arms and his wiry strength, he would often get much further than people would expect, and he would get one of those big telescopic arms out, and you just had to be in the right place to take a pop off him. And that's what happened. It was towards the end of the game, pretty close, but I think we were maybe like 2 points ahead, maybe like just a conversion ahead, and he made a bit of a break off a scrum, got tackled. I ended up being fortunate enough to get it, and in a bit of space on a sunny day, opened up, went right the way up. And this is, I mentioned earlier, I don't have much of a step. I had been watching some videos, some YouTube videos of some good wingers, and I just decided to just try it. And I did a sort of hop and step, and the Leith fullback absolutely bought it, ended up on his arse, and I went through and scored it, and there's photos around of it, but that basically, it secured the game, and it effectively meant that the next week we didn't have much to do. Whatever the season was, I'm not 100% sure. I didn't play in the next game, which was a bit of a scunner, but my shifts at the time were such that I would play in some games, miss others. So but yeah, that one was a particularly good one. And one of the games that I wasn't playing in, but was probably the best Northern performance, and I'm probably not alone in this, was the Dalkeith game on the high school pitch when they were unbeaten and they came to us. Was one of the best performances of a rugby team and complete that I've ever seen. You know, at its level, it was unbelievable. Just so good in every respect. And this Dalkeith team were so confident and so full of themselves that they thought they could just bulldoze us with a big number 8. And we just outplayed them in every aspect. We out-8'd them. We beasted them up front, and when it got out to our backs, we ripped them apart. It was just awesome for 80 minutes. It was awesome. And not only was it Dalkeith, who are, you know, Middle Earth dwellers and, you know, ultimately troublesome, but everything about their attitude when they turned up that day, when they were getting beaten, was poor. And then their reaction to being absolutely outclassed on the pitch made it even better. The fact that they just went and just left. They didn't even come into the bar. They didn't do anything. They just left with their tails between their legs was the icing on the cake. And it was just like, well, okay then. But the return game, I did play in. So the return game, we went to Dalkeith, and they hosted us, and we said to ourselves before, regardless of what happens here, we're going to stay for a drink because we are not them. We're going to put ourselves above them. So we played in that game. Our twos were also playing there, and we, I believe, won the game. I mean, I'm pretty sure we won the game. Did we, Chase?
Pass, but like you say, a lot of
it was the next season. It was the return. Yeah, the return game the next season. The first one back, and not first game back, and basically we sat in the clubhouse, and I remember sitting next to you, and both teams sitting in there, all bought pints, all sitting there, you know, accepting their hospitality. There was some issue with food. There wasn't enough food or something, but anyway. And then their president stood up, thanked both of their teams for coming, gave man of the match to both of their players, and then sat down.
Yeah.
And we just kind of, I think I was sitting next to us, and we just kind of were like, can we just go then? I mean, how does that work?
Not welcome.
No, I would actually like to add the caveat from your hosts that the views of our guests expressed are not the views of Edinburgh Northern. Although we may or may not agree with the sentiments that the people who live in are Middle Earth dwellers. You know, every time I played with you, Sacha, we've actually played quite a lot together in the grand scheme of things. You know, I always remember you as being very hard hitting, very direct. I was actually having a think on the way back from rugby tonight about what my most memorable games playing with you were. Like kind of there's probably too many kind of big hits and stuff to remind myself of. I couldn't remember any specific, but I could remember one tackle against Pennycook in my first season, which you may recall. Do you remember the game I'm talking? It was me and Jason had discussed this before. It was Jason thinks you were travelling and the guy ducked.
That one. Oh, I know exactly the one. Yeah, that game.
Yeah,
I forgot it. The home game. Yeah. So the most ridiculous red card you'll ever hear about. And I mean, it was. I think really what that was an inexperienced ref who fell so far behind the game that when he saw the guy laid out, he assumed it must have been an illegal hit. But the guy must have weighed about 9 stone, soaking wet. And I was, at that time, I was in the gym a fair bit. I probably was, 14 and a half stone maybe. And I was traveling. Like I was coming across. I was playing it inside centre. The guy was coming down the blind side. So I covered across. I've always liked covering, because you don't want someone to get through, and you'd be there to maybe get a wee cheeky jackal or a turnover. Coming across, he was flying down, and I just hit him so clean around the chest, and there was just a momentum switch. I mean, it was just physics, and it just happened that his legs went up, like the direction he was running in, his legs kind of flipped out in front, and then we both went down and back, and everyone was just like, there was a bit of a crowd at the time, and People cheered, because they thought great hit and whatever. And the referee blew his whistle, and everyone was like, "What?" And then he gave me a straight red, and he said, "I'll always remember his words." He said, "There's no place on a rugby pitch. There's no place for a tackle like that on a rugby pitch." And I just shook my head and walked off. I mean, what else can you do? But our president at the time, Uncle Joe Smith, was on the touchline, and he just shook his head. He just said, and I was so in shock and so annoyed about it, because it was a competitive game at that time, that I walked towards the changing rooms, and then was like, actually, what am I doing? I don't really know. I might as well come back and watch the rest of the game. So I came back and watched it, and but in the referee's report, he wrote that I was standing stationary on the wing, and that as the guy approached, I stuck out my arm and clotheslined him. Now, there's a real issue, because it was pretty much from a set piece. It was first phase of a set piece.
Yep.
So if the breakdown or the set piece was on that side, why on earth was your inside centre standing so far on the blind side, stationary? And so we contested it. With the SRU. We had witnesses. Their own president, Pennycook's president at the time, was a witness for us to say that it should never have been a red card. There was nothing wrong with it. It was below the shoulder, and at that time, around the chest was fine. I mean, I think it would still be a legal tackle now, but he, I think, but he, they accepted that while it probably shouldn't have been a red card at the time, referees had a memo about high tackles, so if they perceived it to be, then they had to give a higher sanction. So that was I think my first red card.
I don't know what you're getting about, Jason.
we'll maybe not get on to second or third or etc. But anyway, we'll move on to Sacha. We usually ask then some of your favourite players by position you've enjoyed playing with at Northern. So you decide yourself on a position and then tell us who you like playing with.
I mean, it's a tricky one. I mean, until probably a few seasons ago, I would have always been a winger or centre for Northern. And certainly, as a winger, as I said, a lot of my work early years was probably defensively when the weather conditions were bad. But in latter years, certainly, we got quite a lot of more ball onto the wings. But there's a couple of players that really stand out for me, and there were, I kind of played in between, probably after some of the really years, when you had your Alex Lairs. I never played with Alex Laird until the Gents, but Chris Aitken is probably, as much as it pains me to say, because he's a good mate and I'll noise him up about it, is probably one of the best rugby players I've played with. I mean, while he probably is a 15, as a 10, he's one of the best 10s I've seen at Northern or at any club I've played at. He had the full package, and I'm not talking about the package that Mawdsley particularly appreciates. The kicking game, running game, defensively, so good. And I remember a few games playing with him where I was maybe at centre, and he would maybe be playing at 15, and he would just always be running the right line. So it was so easy. It made you look like you were playing the best pass in the world, but you were just putting a wee pop off, great shout, and a great line, and he'd be away. So, I mean, Chris Aitken definitely up there. A bit disappointed that we didn't get to play more rugby together. Probably the season that I started playing, or starting all the time in the first couple of seasons of that was around about the time that he crocked himself and then was out of proceedings for forever. So that's a bit disappointing. But I've played a lot of rugby with Spills at 10. I played with quite a few 10s, but I would say Spills is probably the 10 that I feel that I get more than anyone. I mean, I know he's a 9, but he's a really good 10. I mean, he loves a chip through and he loves a crossfield. I equally love a chip through and a crossfield. And so I think both of us are sometimes maybe a couple of paces back. So I think that's worked. I've benefited a lot from spills passes and kick passes. So yeah,
worked particularly well down in Dalkeith one day, I remember.
Did indeed.
It did. That was one of the other games that sticks in my mind. So I can't remember. It was only a couple of seasons ago. I think I was generally playing twos quite a lot, but we were a little bit short in centre cover, so a bit of an inexperienced centre pairing. So I can't remember who was coaching then or captaining, but someone had said, "Look, I know you're working that morning, but is there any way you could make the game?" And I said, "Yeah, I can make the second half." So came straight to Dalkeith from work, got changed at the side of the pitch, out of my uniform, and then came on at 12. They had quite a sort of jinky centre partnership that were causing a bit of problems, and the inexperienced centres that we had were maybe struggling a wee bit to deal with them. So came on, had a pretty good game, enjoyed it. Defence, I would say, became I would say it was one of my sort of strengths in later years. So, and then towards the end, Spills called the call. I don't want to name it for opponents. I don't know if it's changed the name, but
It's not.
Okay, I will. Called the call. We knew what was coming, and he just put. I've still got the video on my phone somewhere, but he put it on a tuppence. He just put a brilliant kick through, and I just ran on to it and literally took it over the line. It was so nice, so satisfying. But I mean, I've benefited from quite a lot of that. I think the other week we were playing in Gents, and we scored 2 off crossfields from Spills. So it's pretty. He's pretty good fun to play outside. Also, Wilson at 9. I played a bit at 10 outside Wilson, but quite a lot at 12 outside Wilson at 9, and we came up with a few calls where it was just me crashing it up off 9, and pretty effective. I remember a few tries off that, which were pretty enjoyable too. So yeah, I mean, for me, anyone who's getting me ball that I can score some tries off is pretty enjoyable. There's been quite a lot of them at Northern, but I mean, I think one of the things weirdly that I enjoy most is when you've got really good back rows, it makes your life at centre a lot easier. You know, you get a lot of go forward ball, takes a lot of pressure off you defensively. So Jace is one of them. Always know that you don't have to always take that back row runner at 12. If you have to always be covering that, it leaves you pretty exposed outside. So Jace, very good at it, and Paul Henderson that I mentioned earlier, really good fun to play outside. Always get you on the front foot, and will always wipe out anyone that thinks they're going down that 10 channel, which is pretty good fun. Good fun, and you get a wee steal. I love a jackal, so if you can get a steal, then it's always good.
So some good reminiscing there, Sacha, about your time on the pitch. That try, by the way, the Spills one, I got Dalkeith was actually probably my favourite try that I've watched someone else score for the club. Partly because I hate Dalkeith and partly because it was just magical. So it was really good. But we'll move on. We move to off the pitch and into the bunker as such. Do you have any what are your favourite nights out from Northern? You know, from your time at the club.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I probably in my first 2-3 years at Northern, I was there a lot in the bar. My wife, now wife Fiona, was down a lot. In latter years, although I only lived literally, I must have been one of the closest, if not the closest. Maybe Chappers might have been a little bit closer to the club, but geographically, I was within a 4-minute walking distance. So I was never shy for a night out. But there's a lot. A lot of them roll into one and it get pretty messy, and a lot of them involved me getting very messy. I was one who was pretty bad at downing, but pretty good at bringing things back up. So a lot of good memories. First Burns night was a particularly good one. I sort of I drank a lot of red wine then, and the evidence was clear the next day. But I think for me, while there are a lot of Garibaldi's nights that I remember that were really good, one of them in particular was the mixed touch tournament. I was looking back on my Facebook, and the mixed touch tournament was a brilliant thing that summer. I think it was maybe the first or second one we'd done. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there'd been a lot before. I'm not sure. Jess, do you know?
It's something Cheatley would have ran, and then John Walsh took it on. But yeah, you're right. It hasn't really happened since.
Yeah, I mean maybe next, but the mixed touch tournament, big day down the club, night in there, and then a big night at Garibaldi's was kind of the framework. But for me, I think although it's a more recent one, my best day in the club and probably in any pub ever was the Calcutta Cup a couple of years ago. The draw. So we're down there, watching the other games, getting pretty lubricated, and then the game started. Pretty hard watch for the first half, and obviously because we've got a mix of nationalities in there.
Sadly,
I think the opposite. I think it is the best thing about it because yes, it is grim when they are lording it over you, but on that rare occasion where it works, it is so soul enriching. I would say, seeing Holland crumpled in the corner like you wanted the ground to swallow him up was a memory I'll treasure forever. But literally, when we started to have the fight back, I remember standing with Colin McGregor, and we were like, yeah, okay, consolation. Okay, slightly bigger consolation. And then it started to build, and you could feel the tension in there, and people were just getting more and more excited and more drunk. And it was building and building. And when the try was scored where we went ahead, it went like each try celebration got steadily more crazy and more extreme than the last, and people were going nuts, absolutely nuts. And when the try went over where we went ahead, I think a window got smashed. I'm not sure if it was a cork or celebration. I don't know what it was, but there was bottles of beer and fizz getting fizzed everywhere. People hugging, celebrating like they've won the lottery. I mean, it was pandemonium, pure and simple, and the adrenaline was through the roof. And then obviously the ending, there was tears, there was all sorts. It was every emotion you could ever have in one tiny room, and it was brilliant. And so for me, that's probably my best ever Northern day / night out. That would be difficult to top.
Don't think it's toppable. I went out to be sick after Sam Johnson scored. Not because I was drunk. I was drunk, but just with the nerves of it all, it got to me. We'll move on again. I know you've been on tour. I think I've been on tour with you. Do you have a favourite Northern tour from your time at the club?
I've only been a tourist once. People are always surprised because I've been there for a while, and much as I would have loved to be on more tours, finances, work, weddings, children got in the way. So I've only been on one tour. I was going to go on Gents tour this year, but didn't happen. So because of COVID, but I will tour again, but Gents. But so yeah, I mean, my one tour is a highlight. It was to Split. It was a great tour. I was a virgin, obviously, because it's my one tour, and actually I was a bit nervous about it beforehand, but I would definitely opt to be re-virgined because it was so good fun. It was such good fun. It was hilarious. Lots of good memories, lots of funny stories from it. A couple in particular. I didn't do much for Celtic American relations on that trip, but that was particularly funny. I mean, there was, I don't know, do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, go for it, 'cause I think I remember it vaguely, but go for it.
So we got on the now infamous bus trip, which took, I can only estimate because I was hungover and drunk at the same time, and not wearing a lot, but I estimate it took about 35 hours, and was very hot. But that may not be totally accurate. But we got to this place, which we'd been told was like Croatian spring break, and we thought, yeah, it won't be. And then it really was. It was literally spring break in Croatia. There were two crazy bars that were like stadiums and raised up, but they all had pools in them. So me, Paul Holland, and Boom Boom. Actually, it's a bit of a sore point because we'd lost Dougie Camlish and we were too drunk to remember to get him. Holland, myself, and Camlish have a few matching tattoos, so we went to get tour tattoos, but we forgot to get Camlish. So Holland and I and Boom Boom got tattoos. Then after that, we went up and caught up with everyone in the bar, and there was a double pool. So there was one pool here with a bit of like walking bit in between. And there was a couple of American guys there who were being very USA, like standing on it. And so it was definitely Ewan Sterling's idea. Decided to go and push them in the water just because it'd be funny. I mean, you're at a pool party. What's the harm? So we went up and pushed them into the water, but they did not take it in the way that we anticipated. We thought they'd turn around and be like, "Ha, you guys, so funny," which is what we would have done. But literally, it turned from I was standing like, "Ha," like waiting to like laugh, and then the guy got up and just like looked at me. I was too drunk to react, but he just like swung a massive punch into my face, and I just didn't move. I didn't really react because wasn't really anticipating it. And then I just kind of was like, "Mate, what the hell?" And then all these massive Croatian bouncers jumped straight into the pool in their clothes and grabbed him. And we were standing. Sorry, the pool on the left was empty. So Ewan Sterling and I were standing in an empty pool. And then basically I looked over my shoulder, and in my recollection it was like Lord of the Rings, you know, when all the guys, the people come over the hill and the horses to back them up. Really just Gav Ford in a Viking helmet piling into the back of us up. And I was like, it's okay mate, we'll just not. And actually, yeah, so I didn't retaliate for probably the first time in my life. It was the right option. He got pumped out. Apparently he was really annoyed about because he'd had his phone in his pocket. Who has a mobile phone that's not waterproof in their pocket at a pool party? But anyway, so he waited and gave me an ultimatum that was fight him, pay for his phone, or replace the phone. And I unsurprisingly gave him a fourth option, which was none of the above, and just carry on with my day. So we did. So that was good fun, all fun and games, and he went on his merry way. So that was fine. But yeah, so I plenty of other stories. Had to do a bit of mentoring of some of the other virgins. Some of the virgins were struggling on their second and third nights. One of them even said, I might just stay in this night. And I said, mate, there's literally no way that will work out well for you, staying in and just going to bed on the third night of tour. I mean, I don't see how that will work for you. So,
good story, though.
I've never heard of Gav Ford being described like the Riders of Rohan coming over the hill.
That's exactly what he was. The Riders of Rohan.
Yeah, I will never ever quote that to him, and I really hope he doesn't get it, because he'll take that as a compliment in a really perverse way.
So, Sacha, a good few listener questions in for you there. If you don't mind entertaining us, Michael can lead us off.
So the first one comes in from Anders Christensen, which is, how much force is too much force?
Now, I could answer that really boringly, but what I will say is, now that I'm no longer a police officer, I'd say enough force to get the job done. And I'm not talking about police work, I'm talking about rugby work. As much force as you need to get the job done. And that also applies to DIY.
Well done. So
That's a very, very dignified answer. I'm impressed.
yeah, so the next one in from at 35,999, they ask, Robert Englund played Freddy Krueger in what film series?
What was that? Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Robert Englund played Freddy Krueger in what film series?
I think it's got to be Friday 13th, isn't it?
Oh, Nightmare on Elm Street.
I got it wrong twice. How can somebody get the same question wrong twice?
So the follow-up question is, the brickfielder is a hot, dry wind in what country?
South Africa. I answered that wrong again. Mate, it just shows I just don't know it. I'm never going to know those. Is that right?
The answer is Australia.
Oh, I know. It was the choice between the two. I thought I'd get right this time.
So the next one in social media, the abbreviation HT stands for
Hat tip.
Well done.
Ding, 1 point. Well done. Excellent. The next one is Erwin Schrödinger shared a Nobel Prize in what category?
Chemistry.
Oh,
There's only 3 of them. Physics is the answer.
I think you
How do I
the same first time as well.
Yeah.
And their last one then, the Soviet Union was founded and dissolved in what century?
The 20th.
Well done.
Excellent. 2 out of 5. Not bad.
There was no time pressure on that last one. The last one was a error of time. But I mean, what that does, I'm kind of proud because what that does say is that I don't watch myself on that episode too often.
And it also it complements my co-host on his level of research.
Mate, that is some solid research. I wouldn't have even known at first that was what you were going for. Was it really Robert Englund? I thought it was about the name of the character. I thought it was Michael Myers.
No, it's Freddy Krueger. So,
but not.
It's all right. I mean, you still won the chase, which is more. That's the fun. It doesn't really matter how many you got wrong. The final question is from at Candles in the Wind, which is, when can we have your honeymoon pint recreated, but this time wearing Northern budgies?
Soon. Well, I think it'll have to wait till next summer now, mate. As much as I live in sunny Dunny, I don't think it's going to get warm enough to get in that paddling pool until next summer. But
you could just get in the harbour.
Mate, the harbour is so cold. I mean, like, I wouldn't get out of the harbour in budgies. There's no danger. It's so cold.
No. Well, that can be a post-lockdown treat for us all then.
Yeah, I don't know. I've probably got a bit sloppy in lockdown. So I'll maybe next summer I'll get back in the gym maybe and try and recreate it.
Excellent.
Good stuff. So I think there's just one final question before we round up, Michael.
There is. Yeah. So what are you most looking forward to doing when life returns to normal?
I mean, I think for me things are getting fairly back to normal, but I would have quite liked to have a leaving drinks for leaving the police, and I couldn't do that to mark the thing. So that probably arranging drinks with a large group of people, or maybe if things are back to normal by October, having a birthday party for the wee one. So probably that. Restaurants and stuff and golf I can do now. So in general, I'm pretty content.
Good. Good to hear.
Won't lie, slightly disappointed that getting back on the pitch wasn't an answer there, but that's
I mean, yeah, I will definitely play for the gents, but I've shifted my focus to a different type of grass now. I'm playing a lot of golf.
quite right.
Too much golf.
Good stuff. Thanks, Sacha. So next time on the Cockerel cast, we plan to finish up the series for now with a special doubler. So join us for what will no doubt be a bumper episode. For now, though, I'm Jason Thompson. He's Mike Mawdsley, and thanks to our guest Sacha for your tales. Stay safe, and we look forward to picking up a few cards playing for the gents before long.
Cheers, Sacha.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Ugh.